We should name the first episode Part 2 and the second episode Part 1. You know, because time travel.
That's probably just going to make it look like we don't know how to upload our files.
Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hello.
Brad, are you ready for high shenanigans through time and space?
I am very excited about this. When are we doing that? We're playing a game about that, aren't we?
No, I thought we could just stop doing a podcast about games and just talk about Doctor Who for 2 hours straight.
I thought we were going to do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I mean, it's the same thing. They're in a phone booth traveling through time. No, we're here to talk about Chrono Cross, and then next week, Wow,
you're already time traveling on our episodes here. This week, this week's show is we're talking about Chrono Trigger. And what are we doing next week, Donald?
Chrono Cross.
There we go. You got it.
One of the two games is superior to the other. You'll have to listen to the end of episode 2 to find out which one it is.
Or, consult any website about this series anywhere ever.
I think I actually listened to one of our past episodes where I might have went off on it. I think San Francisco Rush.
Yeah.
I talk about Chrono Cross. Well, let's talk about Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
The story of the boy whose death was cheapened.
That is certainly one way of looking at it. The story of the boy who was so desperate to get laid that he just, jumped into a magic portal to chase after some girl he just met 5 minutes earlier.
I don't know if he just viewed that as bravery. When I see someone get sucked into a vortex and disappear from my sight, I think, wow, that person just vanished into that vortex and will never be seen again.
Yeah, I was reading some guides and watched some videos on this game. This is a very popular, well-regarded game. I wanted to not just go just on my own experiences, but I wanted to get some other opinions. So I watched some videos, read some stuff, and there seems to be a lot of people out there who are like, Chrono just goes right after him because he's just that brave or that much of a man of action, or he's just a cool guy. And I'm like, cool guys do not just desperately jump into vortexes because a girl talked to them. That's what guys that aren't used to having girls talk to them, that's what they do. That's me in high school jumping into that portal. That's not the cool captain of the football team with 10 girls he could ask out on a Saturday night.
So, Brad, in high school when you jumped into the portal and you got hurled back to 65 million BC, can I ask you about the cave people you met?
They spoke pretty good English for it being 65 million BC.
Yeah, I had forgotten that about this game. They're like, yo, what's up, dude?
Their grammar was a little rough, but, I'm sure that's evolved over 65 million plus years.
Really, the way they talk when you first meet the cave people isn't that far removed of how we talk now, which makes me wonder how the evolution of speech works in the Chrono Trigger world, because it is barely inched forward by the time the present that Chrono and Marl left. Meryl?
Yeah.
So you are a boy named Chrono because his mom was like, teehee, I'm going to name you a time convention.
This won't be foreshadowing. Maybe she's also a time traveler and she already knew what was in store for this kid.
Like, you're doomed when you turn 15 and meet your first girl. You are going to completely screw up time in ways that you can't even imagine. And really, Chrono Trigger is a story about a group of people who shouldn't be time traveling, and just doing the most horrific things to time as they do it. No one gave them a roadmap to say, hey, if you squash a butterfly, it's gonna cause velociraptors to become president in the year 2018.
I'm pretty sure they actually got that speech and they said, oh, well, if that's what happens when we squish a butterfly, what's gonna happen when we just start yanking people around out of the timeline?
And just slaughtering everything we see. Left and right. Yeah, it's not good to yank people out of the timeline. It's not good to kill people in the past, because you're gonna inadvertently murder yourself.
Probably.
Or, like they do. wipe out humanity.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, early in the game, the one character kind of experiences this. Like, you change the timeline, her mother, grandmother, whatever, gets, like, killed off, her ancient ancestor, and then, like, she just, like, disappears, like, right in front of you. So you go and you get the girl back and you fix the timeline, and then she reappears, and it's awesome because she's like, it was like, I felt so cold and everything went away. Is that what being dead feels like? You know, that's a serious, like, existential moment there. Immediately, your nerdy friend's like, welcome back! I'm just super happy.
I stared into the abyss and it stared back at me. Do you want to use my headphones?
I made a science!
The part you're talking about when you are in, like, what, 600 AD?
Yeah.
You meet a character, and the characters, you know, sometimes have really goofy names, and they don't really go with the character. You're like, that must have got lost in translation. But I believe there's one character in this game whose name was impossible to translate, and some translator just typed frog for the character that looks like a frog, and I was like, that's good enough.
I like to think that it was, you know, not like a translation like in the real world, but like an in-game translation thing where they meet him and they're like, what's your name? And he like pronounces something in like a combination of ribbits and other noises that like people can't make, and they're just like, we're gonna call you Frog because you're a big ass frog. And it's probably like kind of racist almost. Like, it's like, dude, you can't just call the frog guy Frog all the time. When
you meet the robot in the future, it perfectly pronounces his name. Then the frog's like, these guys are super racist, dude. And they're like, your name is Robo. No, I have a name. Okay, Robo, whatever.
You know, later on you find out that Frog is that way because of a curse that was put on him. It used to be human. So now, like, when you're naming him this, you're just constantly, like, reminding him, like, the worst thing that's ever happened to him. They're like, whatever you say, Frog.
You failed to protect the queen, and we keep calling you Frog. Every moment with us is a reminder of all your failures, Frog.
Remember the worst day of your life? Frog.
And he's like, you went back in time and met a cave woman, and you call her by her name. What's your point, Frog?
You call the bad guy by his real name.
It's Lavos, the evil parasite from space. And you call me Frog. Yeah, Frog. So yeah, you keep bouncing through time. You go to the future. Lavos, the thing you didn't know about, has risen and destroyed basically everything. People live in these domes in this climate that's completely trashed. Radiation's everywhere. You walk into a pod and it sort of feeds you, but leaves you hungry, which seems like a bad invention. So it's probably something Luca made. So, I want to present my question right up here in the front.
Sure.
If that machine had worked and she hadn't gone back through time, would everything have been okay?
It's a complicated plot, and I'm trying to put together all the pieces, but I think it is one of those situations where, without you screwing around with the timeline, I think everything would have just worked out fine.
Like, I imagine Lavos would have eventually risen.
Yeah.
But by the time he arrived, if you hadn't monkeyed with completely everything throughout time, there would have been, like, an established military that could have taken care of him pretty easily instead of 3 teenagers or 2 teenagers and a frog.
You know, I hate to hijack the conversation and get us a little bit off track, but it just occurred to me, what if Frog is like actually just like a frog, like a regular frog, and it's just like in their imaginations that he's like this anamorphic great swordsman, half frog, half man thing, but it's actually just a frog, and they're just pretending that he's, you know, anything more.
Do you mind if I one-up you?
Go for it.
What if when they jumped through the portal, they actually fell down back behind the machine and had severe brain damage from the radiation, and none of this actually happened, and it all takes place in, like, the last few seconds of their life?
That's pretty good, too. You know, I thought back to another alternate theory. Have you ever seen that Looney Tunes cartoon with the frog that sings ragtime songs?
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling.
Yeah, but like he only does it when the one guy who found him is there. He won't do it for an audience. Maybe it's like that. Like Frog is only this amazing like knight when no one else is around. But like as soon as like, you know, they have other people that are like, oh yeah, we rescued everybody with the help of, you know, Luca and this frog that can use a sword. And the frog's just like, Erp.
But assuming that they actually traveled through time, because we kind of have to assume, through a series of unfortunate events caused solely by our intrepid team, you meet Queen Zeal.
Yes.
Who wants to be immortal, and she thinks Lavos is the way to make her immortal. To the point she's worried her sons or her children are going to try to steal her immortality and blows them through time. Like, everyone seems to have access to time in this game. Like, it's just a thing you do. You or I would open a window. Someone's like, oh, I opened a portal through time. Goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little unfair for us to say that, you know, without Luca's invention going wrong, none of the bad stuff would have happened. Like, so many people were messing around with time that probably would have happened at some point.
Yeah. So apparently they knew how to monkey with time in the past, and that technology got lost until Luca figured out how to open the door again.
Yeah.
And then there's one place in this game that's the most peaceful that you hardly screw up. And that is literally the end of time, which is just like this cool park with a lamp. And it's the most beautiful part of Chrono Trigger. You're just like, I'm going to the park at the end of time.
I'm just gonna hang out at the park at night with some creepy old guy. What could go wrong? I'm a teenager.
He's like, hi, I'm the master of time. And they're like, that checks out. Have you met my frog?
I'm the master of time. Would you like to get into my unmarked van?
The thing you do at the end of time is you manage your party and you do some spell stuff there. But if someone doesn't go with you on your next leg of the adventure, they just have to stand in the park with the old man at the place where time doesn't exist anymore. What exactly do you do at the end of time? Just the old man and a robot standing there. Yeah.
So, did you see the Super Bowl? I've seen all the Super Bowls.
I didn't see any of them after 1999 because Lavos destroyed us all.
Now, here's a question. Let's say Chrono is from the year 1000 AD, and the world is destroyed in 1999. If I came to you and I said, 1,000 years from right now, the world is going to end. You can prevent this if you go on a dangerous mission all going through time. If it was me, I'd be like, 1,000 years is a long time. I'm actually surprised we made it that long. I mean, Chrono was on the run, so that was a complicating factor, but I think I would have figured out a way to just stay in my own time and, you know, not worry about all the other stuff.
I kind of would have been like, 1,000 years, we probably deserved the end of our race, so it's okay. I don't owe anything to people 1,000 years into the future.
They're probably all jerks.
Yeah. They're probably like, oh, look at my hover bike.
Look at my iPhone 1000.
It runs all my organs for me, so I don't have to. You do have cool hover bikes in this game.
Yeah.
And you have a race on the hover bikes.
They thought it was such a cool minigame that they put in ways for you to, like, just go back and do it again. Like, compete for high scores and stuff. Like, they were very proud of their hover bike racing.
Sometimes throughout the history of Square games, they think they come up with something really great. They're like, you know what this character should do? Ride a snowboard. You know what this character should do? Drive a motorbike down a freeway.
You know what this character should do? He should be a professional athlete in some underwater dodgeball game. That makes no sense.
And every time you see those minigames come up in a Square game, I believe every player who's ever been there is just like, oh no.
Are you telling me that Fort Condor wasn't your favorite part of Final Fantasy VII?
Fort Condor's pretty great. No, that's a tactical RPG. I mean, that's kind of in their wheelhouse, but underwater sports ball is not in their wheelhouse.
It's not in anybody's wheelhouse.
So, I alluded to it earlier. There's a moment where Chrono's like, you know what would make this story dramatic? If I died. The first time you meet Lavos, he's like, you sent 2 teenagers and a frog to kill me? I'm Lavos. And he super murders you fast. And Chrono's like, I'll save you all. And sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
And the others escape. And depending on who you're with, they're like, good job, frog. I thought you were a brave knight who did knight stuff. And he's like, oh, come on, guys. So Chrono dies in this game.
Yeah. And you don't have to bring him back, I don't think. Maybe you do. I did, but I thought I read somewhere that you don't have to.
I did not know that you could avoid doing that.
I'm thinking about it now, and it doesn't... Because it's like a major plot point.
Yeah, the Chrono Trigger is kind of a big deal.
You know, the thing that the game's named for.
Yeah, they slipped that one right in the title.
Maybe it's possible that I read something online that was not entirely true.
I decided to also read up on different points of view of this game, and I discovered there's a scary world of different pages out there dedicated to this game, and some of them are horrific. But yes, you get a thing called the Chrono Trigger, and I think it was named that so when you got to it the first time, you were like, whoa, I see what they did here. They named something in the game after the game. And you make like a lifeless version of Chrono, and you swap real Chrono with lifeless version. But I started thinking of the horror of that. What if it wasn't as lifeless as they thought? Another question about the Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just go somewhere else in the timeline and just get Chrono again?
Well, I guess they didn't think of that. Yeah, which is dumb because... I mean, the whole game, you're like just going back in time and grabbing folks, so it's not like they didn't have a precedent for it.
Like, right before they went to fight Lavos, just pop up there and be like, yo, Chrono, you gotta roll with us. You other two, super dead. There was ways around it other than making some poor, lifeless clone get killed.
I like to think that it was just like... I know, like, you do a whole quest for it and everything, and it's, you know, supposed to be... I like to think it was just, like, a wax statue. Like, one of those, like, not very convincing ones that they have at museums. And you're just like, oh, look, it's Chrono! We tricked you!
Luca, why did you put a beard on him? He's a teenager.
They don't even remember what he looks like after, like, 10 minutes. And they're just like, well, is this him? Sure. It's a scarecrow.
Robo's like, I took a photo. I can show you a photo. Shut up, dumb robot. Go talk to the frog.
They just, like, go back to Chrono's house at his present time and, like, sneak into his bedroom and take a bunch of his clothes and then, like, stuff them full of hay.
Someone's like, wake up, Chrono. Where are your clothes, Chrono?
Why do I even have clothes in this timeline if I've already died like thousands of years in the past?
Yeah, I have to believe his mom was sitting somewhere at home, like doing a Sudoku puzzle, and she looked up the moment her son died in the far reaches of the past and was like, I should probably find Chrono. I think he might have just died at the hands of an alien parasite. One of the endings, your mom does fall through time. And he's like, I better go save her. And everyone else like, no, Chrono, you'll kill us all.
Again. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, for a game that, you know, takes itself pretty seriously and, you know, deals in some heavy stuff. Like, that is like a wacky, like, 80s cartoon ending right there. It's just like, oh no, Chrono's doing it again.
Well, and then the ending with the fireworks, where you take the Epic, which... Do not let teenagers name an awesome time ship. Isn't it like the Time Wing when they first get it?
Yeah, I think so.
And they're like, no, we're going to name it Epic. It's like, Sponsored by Mountain Dew. Travel the time wave.
You're 16 or something. Cars don't even exist where you're from. Planes certainly aren't a thing. Take the keys. Go travel through time in a flying time machine. It'll be fine.
Sure, you used to fall through the time weave, and I was able to control where you go, which was mostly back to this park, so I could talk to you, Chrono. But have a spaceship. I mean, the other Final Fantasy games get a spaceship. You get a time ship. Like, if Chrono showed up in one of those games, he'd be like, you guys are lame. I died and then got a spaceship.
Cruising through time and space in your ship, and, it's like you just show up in the 1940s, like, oops, I just ran over Winston Churchill in my space-time ship. I hope that doesn't, change time.
Why didn't you run over Hitler?
I'm not from here, man.
Frog, why didn't you tell me?
Damn it, Frog. Meanwhile, Robo is just hiding in the corner I have extensive data banks on who they should or shouldn't have run over, and I ain't saying nothing.
Except for the first time they screw up time, his databanks would be worth nothing.
It's like rewriting a Wikipedia entry.
Edited by Robo. Edited by Robo. Edited by Robo. The dates are all funny. 600, 1200, 65 million BC. This guy gets around.
I would like to think that those were the exact dates. You know for sure that 1000 AD where you start, because they're having the Millennial Fair. So that is definitely the year 1000. I like to think that they had this time travel ability, but with the exception of 1999, they can only go to nice round numbers. They're like, we could go to 65 million BC, but not 61 million BC. Not 65 million and 100.
And it's shocking when he arrives at 65 million BC. He's just like, yeah, this seems right. If I suddenly was in Dinosaur Land, after I, weed all over myself because dinosaurs, I would not be okay with it. Mostly probably I couldn't breathe the air back then.
Chrono Trigger's world is a little different than our own because they're cave people and dinosaurs coexisting, which shouldn't happen.
I've seen Jurassic Park. Humans and dinosaurs can coexist.
Right.
So your argument is nothing in the face of these facts.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is you'd be able to breathe the air.
Yes. Did you use Ayla at any point in the game?
Don't you have to for a little bit?
Yeah, well, in Dinosaur Land.
Yeah.
But after that...
Yeah, so no.
I've talked to lots of people who are fans of this game. I'm like, Ayla. They're like, who? The girl standing in the park at the end of time in the caveman outfit.
I have a talking frog. I have a robot. I have a science nerd. I have no use for a cave woman. She probably smells. She talks funny. I mean, the frog talks funny too. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Everybody speaks, English, and it's mostly pretty good. And it's only the frog and the cave woman have any kind of verbal nuance. Even if you go to their time, I think some of the cave people have caveman grammar. But when you go to 600 AD, they talk like you do in 1000 AD, except for Frog.
Yeah, he's ribbit.
And then he talks like he's in a Shakespearean play. I think Frog is just pretentious.
Is he a hipster? He's like, hey, let's take a picture with my Polaroid?
I think probably Frog has an English degree and he just likes to use the 10-cent words and fancy ye old English.
So we've now looped back around that it's okay they're mean to Frog.
Yeah, because Frog's a jerk.
Stop being a jackass, Frog. Verily. Ayla, slap him in the face.
Me slap Froggy.
So, Queen Zeal, we need to analyze her plan.
Yes.
Immortality. Which I think her whole plan is, I think this thing might make me immortal.
It seems like they could have maybe, I don't know, found something less potentially damaging that they could have just talked to her. They're like, yeah, drink this fancy water every day and you'll be immortal. And by the time she figured out it wasn't working, she just died. And they'd be like, it was normal water all along. But, something to steer her off of maybe this giant alien monster can make me immortal.
Yeah, I mean, while she's on her deathbed, this water will kick in at any moment. They just pop out of the time gate and they're like, ha ha. and then vanish again. She's like, no, I was fooled. The whole arc of her plan that she wrote on her whiteboard was alien parasite give immortality, 2 question marks. She doesn't have a compelling argument for why this might work.
Well, you know, the scientific method is you start with a theory, and then you test out that theory with experiments. So, when your theory is this parasite monster from space will give me immortality, you have to do an experiment to see if it works. I guess that was her experiment, and it didn't work.
No. Well, it had varying results. Sending children through time so they can't stop you from doing this, which means at some point her children were like, this is a bad plan, Mom.
Yeah.
It's like a really bad plan. And she's like, hey, would you guys like to walk through these swirling color gates? One of them in 600 AD is actually trying to destroy Lavos before his mom can find Lavos.
Yeah.
Which younger me thought that this story was like super intricate and twisting, but now me is like, I think they were just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And every time they screw up, they're like, oh, chrono erase time again. Start over.
You know, when you break it down, the storyline in probably 99% of video games is there, you know, as a way to make the game happen. You know, if you need to make the game a little bit longer, you add like a little subplot where, you know, your progress is thwarted in some way. You know, some games hide this better than others. I remember playing, I think it was one of the Batman games. I think it was Arkham City. And it's like you like recover this object and then Harley Quinn steals it. And it's just like Harley Quinn steals the object to make the game longer. Like there's no other real motivation. If you think too much about the plotline to Chrono Trigger, it starts to look a lot like to make the game go an extra couple hours, this happened.
Yeah. Now, back in the day, I enjoyed Chrono Trigger the most on Super Nintendo. It was my favorite Super Nintendo Japanese RPG.
Okay, was it your favorite just JRPG, or was it like your favorite Super Nintendo game, like ahead of Metroid and Zelda and Street Fighter 2?
It was my favorite Japanese RPG on the Super Nintendo.
Did you have a favorite Western RPG?
They didn't make those on the Super Nintendo, did they?
Not very many, and I don't think any of them were any good.
At that time, I wasn't fully aware that these were even called JRPGs. That really came in later.
It was just RPGs for, you know, until maybe around 2000 or so.
The ones on the computer, I was like, these have a little more depth to them, but this one over here, I can play on my TV, and that's pretty cool.
I actually came to Chrono Trigger pretty late. Like, I think I played Chrono Cross before I played Chrono Trigger. You know, it had come out, and I had heard how great it was, but like I was playing Final Fantasy VI, and that game took me like a year to get through. And then Chrono Trigger came out around the same time, and I didn't get around to it then. And I don't think I was working at a used game store and picked up a copy there and played it at work. So that was my Chrono Trigger experience. It was long after it had come out. It wasn't my favorite Super Nintendo game.
I remember looking at it in the pages of Nintendo Power, thinking, wow, the art in this game is just so good.
Yeah, the artwork in Chrono Trigger is interesting because it's unique, but it still has kind of like that square style to it. Like it wouldn't look out of place in a Final Fantasy game for the most part, but it does kind of have its own flair.
I mean, you got your character designs by the Dragon Ball Z guy, but the art still has to be pulled off by probably the same guy who did Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
And it's a much more colorful game than Final Fantasy VI. 6 has a palette of browns and grays, which really, you know, that's the mood.
There's some dark greens in there. I mean, come on.
But Chrono Trigger is bright and colorful as it deals with you completely wrecking life as you know it over and over and over. Like, even if you think you fixed it, you never know. By the time you get back, they're like, hey, where's your third arm that grows out of your shoulder, Chrono? Hang on, I need to go get in the Epic for just like 10 minutes. Just hold that thought. Comes back 10 minutes later and he thinks everything's fine except everyone speaks French now. It's like, close enough. One of the endings, you actually get to fly the epic away as fireworks go off in the background.
Yeah.
Because you're like, yay, we saved the day. You know what we should do? Travel through time. No one's like, hey, the guy at the creepy park at the end of time wasn't like, I need the keys back to that thing because you saved-ish time.
It's like completing a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and then just being like, you know what we should do to celebrate this is just like slide the puzzle around on the table recklessly for a while and see what happens.
And then light the house it's in on fire.
And everybody's life depends on the puzzle being complete.
They don't care. They just want to do the puzzle over again. Every time you do the puzzle, the picture's different. Then you destroy it. So, my favorite character in this game is Robo.
Okay.
Because Robo don't care. But Robo kind of cares. And there's a moment in this game where Robo gets ripped to shreds by other Robos. And the whole time it's happening, if you try to fight, he's like, no, don't hurt my friends that are murdering me. That just shows you how good of a guy Robo is.
I think Robo might have some issues with feeling, deserving of friends or what. If he thinks that's what friendship is like they just tear him to pieces while he's still alive. He probably just has some confidence issues where he doesn't think he deserves better friends.
But they can rebuild him.
Yeah.
Robo is RoboCop. I think Chrono Trigger is a great game. I still love Chrono Trigger. Even though now I play it, I'm like, this is held together by silly string and hope. But you still have a story arc. I'm now really curious, do you have to really bring Chrono back? You'd have to. There's no way that story would progress without that scene.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure I just either read that wrong or somebody tricked me. Yeah, you have to bring them back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger, for me it's kind of a weird one because I came to it late and I knew it by reputation and I knew it because it was, the game that came before Chrono Cross, which I had just finished around the time that I decided to play Chrono Trigger. So I was kind of already over JRPGs at that point. The genre wasn't very appealing to me anymore. So I don't have that fond memory of it the way I do Final Fantasy VI, where even though I wouldn't want to sit down and play it again now, I still remember that game. I loved that game. Chrono Trigger, I came too late. I would say that, if I still was into this genre, it's really well done. The battle system is a little more interesting, and it's very efficient. A Final Fantasy game, you're kind of messing around for 60 to 80 hours, and Chrono Trigger can be done fairly completely on your first playthrough, and probably, I would say, 30 or less. And it moves, within a couple hours of starting, you've already gone to 3 different time periods. So it's a lot more efficient, and I appreciate that. There weren't nearly as many parts in the game where I got so frustrated from having to do battles constantly the way that I do in Final Fantasy 4 or 6 or really any Final Fantasy game. So it's a little less irritating with the battle system.
I wish Chrono Trigger's battle system had found its way into other Square games.
Yeah.
Because it is by far the most efficient and fun to do with the combo or team up attacks.
Yeah, the combos are great. The fact that you sometimes have to pay attention and actually there's benefits to where the enemies are on the screen. You can hit 2 of them at once, or some of them are in cover and you have to wait till they peek out. That's cool, and that adds a lot more to the gameplay than just sitting there and hitting the button over and over. A lot of our JRPGs, with the Turbo Fire controller, you're just sitting there holding down the button and pick and fight constantly until the fight's over. Chrono Trigger, you got to put some thought into. And the other nice thing about that, though, is you can also, you can up the battle speed really high. So if you are in a part that's a little grindy and boring, at least you can blow through those battles quickly.
We probably would be amiss if we didn't stop and talk about the guy you think is going to be the villain in this game, but ends up just being a doofus. the Chancellor who sentences Chrono to death.
Yeah, over the objections of the princess, who should be able to overrule him. They're like, oh, you're a girl. We don't have to listen to you.
The same Chancellor who sends a tank to kill you on a very tenuous bridge. How do you achieve the level of Chancellor where you don't listen to the ruling family at all? Because the king's like, no, he shouldn't die. She's the one who escaped the castle. This guy just wanted Chrono dead.
He just had it out. Maybe he had his eye on the princess. You know, like if you're a chancellor and you're trying to like become king, that's probably your route, is to like somehow marry the princess.
He just made the mistake of messing with a guy who can open a window through time.
Yeah, that's a dangerous mistake. I would have loved to have seen a part where like Chrono just, you know, like goes back in time like 5 seconds and slaps him, and then just does it over and over and just keeps slapping him.
The Chancellor sees him, Chrono steps through time and then steps back, and the Chancellor suddenly remembers his like first grade teacher, and it's Chrono. First lesson, don't kill Chrono when he's on trial. And the guy's like, oh, you're really messing with me.
If they didn't have to only jump to even numbered years, they could have just like gone back to like a couple years earlier and like had Chrono like meet the Chancellor, and like they get on good terms and they're buddies and they go fishing all the time. And then like when the trial comes up, the Chancellor's like, oh, he's a good guy. He definitely didn't do anything wrong.
Or go to every one of his birthday parties and punch him in the stomach.
That's probably going to sour them against him. But sure, that's one way to do it.
That's going to do some psychological damage, which probably leads to him not being a Chancellor.
Yeah.
But instead, Chrono figures it out. All he has to do is erase that complete timeline, and it's all good.
I like the, you know, it's like this dramatic, like Chrono gets arrested and then he's like put on trial, and, you know, he's kind of railroaded in his not very fair trial, and they're going to execute him. And then he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to leave jail now. Like he basically just is like, hey guards, I'm leaving. And they're like, no, we'll stop you. And he's like, you can try, but it's not going to work.
He's like, I don't die till a lot later, my brothers. And I'm a master of katana blades.
Yeah, they let him have his katana in jail.
It's another thing leading back to your earlier observation that he jumps through time to save the first girl who ever talked to him. His hobbies are katana blades. His mom's like, so what are you going to do today, Chrono? I'm going to go to the Millennial Fair, and I'm going to use katana blades.
Might wear my fedora.
Will Luca be there to watch after you? Yeah, she thinks I'm pretty cool with katana blades.
Yeah, I mean, you only really see, like, the way Luca is portrayed as kind of a nerd, but, like, yeah, I guarantee, like, Luca and Chrono are best friends because they're the nerd clique at, you know, whatever their equivalent of a school is there.
So, I guess we're going to step through a window at this point and fast forward to the end of this episode. Brad, do you have any final thoughts on the SNES classic Chrono Trigger?
I mean, it's not a game that I really love, but I can appreciate, you know, that it's well made, and I can see why people who are big into JRPGs think it's fantastic. It's got a real good story, beautiful art, good music. So yeah, I get it. It's not a personal favorite of mine, but I totally get it. So yeah, that's Chrono Trigger from me and my perspective.
Chrono Trigger will always have a special place in my heart. I had a friend who went to Japan, and he brought me back a Super Famicom cartridge of it. I don't have a Super Famicom, so it doesn't do me much good, but it's fun to look at, like, the Japanese version of that box art.
Well, you know, when your kids get a little bit older, you could probably sell it and pay for all of their college.
I believe it costs $15.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh, I thought that would be, like, super valuable.
He brought me Shining Force 2, which was like $20, and that's sealed.
Ooh.
Like, it's never been opened, so it's got, like, 1989 air inside of it? I think that's how air works.
It tastes like we're winning the Cold War.
Alright, so that is Chrono Trigger, from us. Join us next week where we go back in time and destroy all of reality and talk about Chrono Cross. It's a game that at one point you could purchase with money.
For the PlayStation.
It came on multiple discs.
DOS.
And it was alleged the sequel to Chrono Trigger.
And, yep.
I am Donald, and that was Brad, and we will see you next week.
Just wipe out time.
Oh, that's not going to make the final cut.
But why?
Oh, Brad, you